G'day BookTube, you're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, and today I want to talk about the Ironbound Trilogy by Andrew Givler. If you have not yet read the first two books in this trilogy, then this video is not for you. Stop right now, go and watch my other video in which I gave a spoiler-free review on Ironbound, just the first one, because this is going to be full of spoilers all the way through to the end of the second book, Cold Wind. And I promise you that once you finish that video, you will have already bought the first two books in this trilogy. It's no secret that I have thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is a Roman-inspired world, it's progression fantasy, it's fast-paced, it's action-orientated, and our boy Castor is doing things that no one has done in over 400 years. So these two books have been a whole bunch of fun, but despite how much I'm enjoying them, there's not a lot of discourse out there on Cold Wind in particular. And I'm having to stop every now and then and really sort of think about my understanding of congruencies or what the role the Consuls have in this world. And so I thought, what better way to really synthesize my thoughts than to create a video, to put my ideas out there and have people correct me in real time. So that's what this is going to be. This is basically going to be a reading companion. If you have finished these two books, then jump on in and you can use the timestamps below to explore particular ideas, particular topics, and see if your ideas are the same as mine. What I will say, I'll humbly admit, just because I'm recording this doesn't mean that I have it all sorted out, that I understand everything that's going on. I am undoubtedly going to send my script to Andrew Givler at the end of this as well. He is very prominent on YouTube. And just be like, hey, dude, did I get anything wrong? Please jump into the comments section, Andrew and dear viewer, and tell me where I got something wrong, where I overemphasized something or where I've downplayed a particular idea too much. I'm very keen to learn through this process. So let's dive in with the first idea. Let's figure out where we fit in this world. Where does Castor, our main protagonist, fit in this Roman-inspired world? Now, there are three really clear tiers of citizens in this Iron Empire. We've got the Palatine Elite, we've got the Patricians, and we've got the Plebians. But even within these three tiers of citizens, there are sub-tiers. There's a whole bunch of different people that have a very clear and defined pecking order when it comes to their position in society. So let's start right at the top, the Palatine Elite, the group of people that would even have Cassius Valona jealous of how chiseled their jawlines are. Sitting at the top of that elite group, the top of our pyramid, is our emperor, our Empress, Diana Agrippa, head of the Agrippa family. She has been sitting at the top of this pyramid for what, like 400 years at this point in time? Talk about health maxing. Like this chick has figured out immortality, or so it seems. And that's where that rust is starting to filter on. You can't be immortal. That is not a thing you're allowed to do. Varus was very much on point where he was like, why did we kill these immortal gods only to replace them with an immortal human? Diana Agrippa, she is the head of everything, and she is wicked powerful as well. Did everyone remember from the start of Ironbound where she spoke through, like physically her voice spoke through one of the censors? Like that's wicked levels of power. So we have not yet seen everything that she's capable of, but I think it's going to be darn impressive. The Empress Diana Agrippa, she sits at the very top. Directly under her is her right hand, the Consuls. This has got its history tied into the Roman Empire, where you have two individuals that have authority over everything, over matters internal and external to the country. So these are the two Consuls, the two individuals that answer to the Empress directly. These guys are wicked powerful. Senators shut up when these two individuals speak. You got Consul Brianus Quaestor or something like that, and Consul Electus Maximus Marius. So that's Percy and Gaius's dad, for all those that didn't quite pick up on that. So these two individuals, they share executive power, essentially, where back in the Roman days, they had the capacity to overrule the other, to veto the other one, to prevent a tyranny from coming into effect. They actually only were in power for 12 months, for 1 year, is the tenure that they were given in like actual legit Roman times. However, that was when they were a republic. They actually were legitimately the head of everything when they were a republic. When you go and throw an emperor sitting on top of that, they kind of become a toothless tiger. So it's kind of interesting. I think that is, in essence, what they are in the Iron Empire. If the Empress speaks, I think the consuls have to shut up and listen. Back in Roman times as well, so many of their consuls had a military background. I think it was essential. In fact, they didn't have to necessarily be a military general, but they had to have spent some time in the equivalent of the Iron Legion. That is obviously not the case. Brianus is not bound to any particular material. He does not have a core heart. In comparison, Domus Marius, Consul Marius, he is a Fidelis. He is a silver-bound Electus, ironbound. I do wonder whether or not their delineation of powers, whether or not Brianus very much deals with matters internal. You see him having a very heavy hand involved with the games, the ludus, and everything relating to that. I do wonder whether or not he deals with internal and Domus Marius deals with external. And if so, is Marius now, or Maximus Marius, is he now like commander-in-chief of the Iron Legions? In which case is Imperator Tyrrus, I'm going to call him Tyrrus, is his boss Percy and Gaius's father? If so, super awkward. Like, that's all I'll say about that at this point in time. No. So you've got the Empress, you've then got underneath that two individuals, the two consuls, which hold executive power. I do fear, however, they are a bit of a toothless tiger in this setup, given how powerful the Empress is. So where does the Empress get her power? Well, it is through her censors, the white hand. If the consuls are the right hand, then the censors are her white hand. Where do they get that name from, the white hand? It's because they're all dressed in white with their red capes. That's a pretty sick outfit. And the white is that special material, the Tellus material, which is like ceramic. It's also described as ceramic at one point in time early in Ironbound, but later we describe it as coming from nothing and it's immune to everything else. We'll explore that in just a second. But the Empress's power comes from the monopoly that she holds on the material core. Core is where you are able to level up and become superhuman, essentially, and the Empress owns every single bit of core that rains from the sky. You might imbue it into, like fuse it into your body and imbue yourself to another material, but when you're dead, you better believe that the Empress is going to like rip that core heart out of your dead body and take it back and create a relic out of it herself. Everything is on loan. Core is on loan from the Empress when it goes into your body, which is kind of like a vicious idea. The Empress can't be out there getting all of this core by herself, and that's where the censors come in. They are in charge of everything core related. And so there's this interesting dance of authority, essentially, like who has the most power between the censors, the senators, and the imperators. And I think it very much depends, for particularly the senators and the imperators, we will talk about a little bit more in a second. It depends on context, like where are you, how does that sort of work? And we saw that with Percy and his mother, Plautia, who is only a magister. I don't think she's a senator. I could be wrong on that one. But you saw how, hey, your time is now done, mother. I am now in charge. You can't whip my men. So you see this kind of dance in terms of who has authority. Only one of these, however, speaks with the authority of the Empress, and that is the censors. And so that's why I've put the censors on top of the imperators and on top of the senators. So let's have a quick little primer right now, a little sidebar on this idea of Tellus. We discover through Senator Delilah Censor, which is an interesting idea, that it was Julia Censor, one of the original 6 Iron Laws, that had the ability to create new substances. And correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, she created Tellus. Tellus did not exist as material until Julia created it. And then she found the censors from that moment. It was almost like it was an answer to iron and iron's power. She created a material that iron could not influence. But I do think the gods do have the ability to influence Tellus. And where I'm getting that idea from is if you take your mind all the way back to Atticus, like the big bad Atticus, and how the golden wolf came to Segesta and Atticus ended up fighting him for a brief moment in time. The golden wolf was able to blacken Atticus's Tellus blade. No one's been able to do anything to Tellus since then. And I think that's because Mars, as the god, has the ability to conquer it, to influence it. And I think that's a bit of a telltale, like a projection forward, a bit of a foretelling, really, into what Castor's going to be able to do because he has these godlike powers infused into him because of all the flippin' votems that he binds himself to. So coming back to our pyramid, right at the top, we've got the Empress, then we've got our two consuls, then we've got our censors, who are the white hand of the Empress, and underneath all of that, we've got our senators. Now, it's said at one point in time that the senators perform the role of the vox populi, the voice of the people. I'm going to disagree. Like that is not the role that I have seen them playing thus far. The senators appear to be little more than an honorific title that is given to our matriarchs and patriarchs of our noble families. Not all Palatine families, but our noble families nonetheless. Families that have some sort of lineage tied to the 6 Iron Lords that overthrew the gods. They appear to have the role of senators. The true vox populi at this point in time appears to be Brianus, one of our consuls. He is the one that's in charge of entertaining the masses, ensuring that the voice of the masses is heard, essentially. So I'm going to disagree that the senators are not the vox populi. The senators, however, do get their own like personal Spartan guard, their own personal Iron Legion, which is kind of cool. Like, we see that come into effect right at the end of Cold Wind, when Xania, or however you want to say her name, is coming to seek revenge because she realizes her son Brennus is an absolute fool and is dead. So senators, like, they do the role that you would expect a senator to do. And that's where I'm going to finish our Palatine Elite. I did have 3 other groups of people in the Palatine Elite subgenre, but I've decided because of one person in particular, I'm actually going to kick all of these next 3 down into the Patricians. The Patricians are the nobles. These are the upper class citizens. But even within the tier of Patricians, you still have 2 very clear sub-tiers. And they are the Patricians that live in the cities. I'm talking about Antioch, Antiforum, and Forum. And then you have the sub-tier, the lesser Patricians. And these are those that lived in the countryside. We start our journey in Segesta, which is a really cool agricultural region. And we hear it through Castor's perspective, the fact that his father is this well-respected patrician, and we get this contrast between those patricians and Felix, who is the plebeian. And we're just like, oh, these dudes are legit. And then all of a sudden in Cold Wind, we go and explore these other cities, Antioch and Antiforum, and they talk down on those that lived in Segesta. And we're just kind of like, oh, okay. Like there are 2 tiers of citizens here, even within the elite group, that is the Patricians. And that holds true as well. The more you learn about society, the more you realize like, okay, you need to be living in Antiforum at a minimum to be anybody, to do anything of significance. But outside of that 2 little sub-tiers, like there are particular roles which give you more importance than just being from a rich family. The first of these is being an Imperator, to be a general of the Iron Legion. And it's because of one Imperator in particular, Imperator Brodigan, the Lion of the North, that I decided that you didn't necessarily have to be a Palatine to be an Imperator. Why? Because he wanted the hand of Diana, and he was noticeably not well off enough. He was not patrician enough, not Palatine enough to be worthy of her hand. The priest said, no, we can't water down our bloodline like that. And so he was sent north as a result of that. So that's where I've decided, like, okay, there is a difference between the Palatines and the Patricians, and Imperators. Well, you fall into the Patrician category, not the Palatine category. So Imperators, who are they? They're the generals of the Iron Legion. That we are introduced to 2 Imperators in particular. Imperator Brodigan, who is in charge of the Northern Legions, which is what so if you've got the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think, the 4th, 5th, and 6th Legions. I could be wrong. I'll find that later and I'll correct it in the little notes as I'm going along here. But Imperator Brodigan, he's in charge of 3 different legions. Each legion is made up of like 10 cohorts, and each cohort has 500 people in it. That is a huge number of people that this dude's in charge of. And he appears to have full dominion over what's going on there. We hear that he is able to absorb an entire cohort from the 12th into his little imperium, essentially. And no one can change that. Like, Outside of the Empress, I don't think anyone is going to be able to come on in and be like, excuse me, Mr. Brodigan, Lion of the North, excuse me, you're not allowed to do that. So they appear to have full dominion over their little fiefdom, essentially. The other Imperator that we're introduced to is Imperator Tyrus, and he was in charge of the Royal Military College, essentially, a Goji or a Gogia, however you want to talk about it. So there are the two people that we have. One of them, legit dude. The other one, legit douche. Basically, this is what we've been introduced to there. So if we want to keep our mind on the Iron Legions, if the Imperator is a general who's in charge of 3 different legions, then within those legions, you've got the tribunes who are in charge of an individual cohort within a respective legion. We hear at one point in time that there's like no more than 100 tribunes. That math doesn't quite hold out. If you've got 12 legions and there are 10 cohorts within each legion, there should, like if my math is correct, you should have like 120, but that's okay. Andrew Givler was approximating there and that's totally legitimate. I'm not holding that against him. But the tribunes, I want to say that they're like a colonel. If the Imperator is a general, the tribune is a colonel. They're in charge of a whole bunch of people, 500 people, and they have a legit level of authority. The other individual that I want to call out at this point in time is the Magister. This is Pliny's area of domain here. So the Magisters they are teachers, they are professors. That's kind of the role that they fill. In ancient Roman times, chief is a word that was used quite often when talking about the Magisters. So they are important. This might be a bit of a stretch to talk to them in the same category as Patricians, but I feel like that's the level of respect that they're given, so I'm going to give them that type of respect. So that's where I want to finish our Patrician category. Underneath our Patrician category, what do we have? Well, we've got the Plebians. Poor old Felix, poor old Anas. People that do not have a lot of respect. I wonder where slaves come into it. I imagine slave is actually on the bottom end of plebeian, because Castor started as a patrician, not that top tier of patricians as we understand. So he came from an agricultural region, so he was on a sub tier of patrician. But now he's a slave. Like, I would rather be free and poor than a slave and hanging out with the rich families. Like, there is a level of agency you no longer have access to. So poor old Castor, he's found himself right on the bottom tier. What I will say, though, that there is a path to freedom. There is a path to being a senator, to being a consul, heck, to the Iron Throne itself. There is a way here that Castor could move forward and actually end up on the top seat of the entire freaking Iron Empire. So let's not shed too many tears. The violin is very small when it comes to what Castor is able to do at this point in time in his role in society. Next, I want to talk about the magic system, because the magic system is a whole lot of fun, and this is where that progression fantasy piece really comes into effect. Let's talk about the core hearts. Let's start with some basic core. What do we know about core? We learn that Prometheus, he didn't steal fire from the gods. In fact, he stole their very essence, the thing that gives them power, and he taught that to the humans. And as a result of that, or maybe it always existed, but now they know how to use it, core reigns from heaven. Manna from heaven rains on down, and we're able to grab this core substance, slap it into our chest, and it becomes a part of who we are, and then we can imbue ourselves with a particular material, particular energy source. We can form an attunement, a symbiotic relationship with another material, and we can grab some of the power that material has and actually use that in our everyday lives. As we've learned that all of the core belongs to the Empress. You might be able to use its power for a period of time, but it's on loan. Like, make absolutely no mistake, it is on loan. If you are someone who has a core heart, you are known as an Electi. The Necromantia, which are another group of people that have managed to find power from this core, this substance, they are not Electi. We get a very clear understanding that they don't have the same relationship. Vixa, or whatever her name is, the first Necromantia that we come across, she doesn't quite have the same level of stamina that even a copper-bound Electi has. So that's something that we learn through that. And those that are not able to form a full relationship with their core heart are known as an immundus. These are people that have their white rasa veins still coming through. One thing I think that has not been made enough of is I don't really feel like we've been introduced to any other immundus throughout the story. Castor comes across as an immundus, but he has not yet come across any other immundus in the wild. And I feel like that's a little storyline that Andrew didn't really explore enough at this point in time. Just imagine a world where all the Amundus rally behind Castor as this guy that can understand, he can empathize with us, he can sympathize with us, he knows exactly what we've been through. We're going to rally behind him in this rebellion that is to come. I think that is a little storyline that Andrew sort of let slide. And I would have liked to seen a few more Amundus in the wild and to see the way that they're shunned and they are almost like the bottom of the plebeians now as a result of their inability to fully integrate with their core heart, the way that they've let the empire down essentially by not being able to imbue. So let's talk about the way that you apply our core heart. Like, how is it that you use the symbiotic relationship that you have to the fullest effect? So let's think about the iron shield. You can't add more material if that's all the iron that you have access to. You can't go and make it thicker. You can't make it larger without making it thinner, essentially. The first law of thermodynamics is absolutely in effect. You can't add new energy to something. You can merely transfer it from one source to another. So if I want to make my shield thicker, I need to have another source of iron that I can draw from, grab the essence out of that, use my willpower and make that shield thicker. Energy is a finite resource. Essence is a finite resource. One thing I will say as well is that you have to assume that the connection you have with your symbol, it's got to become subconscious at some point in time. Otherwise, how exhausting must it be to be ironbound and every time you swing a sword at another ironbound individual and they're just like, shatter, and you're like, rebuke, shatter, resist, shatter. Like, you have to assume that at some point in time it becomes subconscious. I think about Harry Potter and you see the duels that happen. How exhausting must it be to be focusing on your wand work and the words that you say, getting the right emphasis, Leviosa, not Leviosa. And then you see Voldemort fight Dumbledore and the dudes are not saying anything at any point in time. And they're just like throwing up walls of flame and water and a whole bunch of stuff. It seems there are different tiers of fighter when you think about the Harry Potter world. I wonder if it becomes subconscious and there's different tiers of fighter where it's like, I don't need to worry about the way in which I use my symbol at times because it becomes subconscious. It becomes an extension of who I am essentially. Otherwise, geez, it would be tiring. Oh, it'd be so exhausting. Oh, I'm exhausted thinking about it basically. But the benefit we have from Castor being attuned to 3 different substances, we understand the benefits that they have. Ancient frost and iron are very physical things as opposed to unrelenting fire. Castor comments a number of times that it itself is energy and it is therefore far more willing to be manipulated and moved around. I still can't, like thermodynamics, first law of thermodynamics, always think about that. I can't add more energy. He still, when he wants to like bring it down on itself, he's just changing the density of it, compacting all of this before he then releases it and launches a huge fireball. I don't know about you, but I've been recently read Dungeon Crawler Carl, and every single time Castor used a fireball, all I could hear was Jeff Hayes' voice playing the role of Princess Donut, screaming fireball every single time that he wanted to use one. Okay, enough on that. Coming back to the application of core. One of the coolest things that I got, it's something that I really liked, is right at the beginning of Ironbound, where we heard the warning that came from Castor's father. Castor's father was a really well-respected dude, but he was copper-bound. He spent his entire life as a copper, which is quite the achievement given what we learn in terms of how it is that you ascend to silver. And he talked about the way that this core heart, it's hungry, it's always looking for more fuel, and it actually starts to change your personality, change your appearance over time. So for all the cool things that having a core heart can allow you to do, there are absolutely negatives. If we want to talk about the first law of thermodynamics, Newton gets a say here. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For all the positives, there are negatives. And there are negatives at 2 ends of the spectrum here. You've got the dregs at one end, and then you've got this insatiable hunger of your core heart at the other. But in between there, you've got the way in which this core heart manipulates the person. It changes your personality. People can barely recognize Castor. Castor can barely recognize himself when he looks at himself in a mirror, based on the way in which ancient frost has manipulated himself, the way that iron manipulated his body. Both of these materials make him numb to the pain of all the loss that he's experienced. After being attuned to iron, he barely experiences the pain or verbalizes the pain of losing his dad. His dad was cut in half in front of him and he barely talks about it. His sister, his mum, his favorite dog are like basically cut down and he's numb to that pain. Valentina, his like love of his life for the first 17 years of his life, gone. And he barely talks about them. Each time he does, iron numbs his heart, and so he can't feel that emotional pain. That is not a good thing. We've learned enough about toxic masculinity and casing over yourself and not letting your emotions have space and recognizing them. My wife is always talking about the fact that I need to not suppress all of these emotions. And I'm like, love, I'm bound to iron. I don't know what else you want me to talk. What you want me to do here? It's not my fault. She's laughing at me from the other room now already, I can tell. But there are negatives when it comes to being attuned to a chord. The dregs, we see the fact that Castor is just like, he is an ice junkie, just waiting for his next hit, and he's getting out of the hospital ward with like massive stab wounds all over him, right? You need to feed this beast. And as you ascend, you get the impression that what used to give you a hit in the past is no longer sufficient. If you were fine having coffee in the morning and that was fine to get you out of bed, as you ascend to silver, it's no longer sufficient. You now need 2 shots. As you get to gold, you're just grabbing raw coffee beans and like rubbing that stuff on your gums. Like what used to be enough is no longer enough. So for every positive you get an equal and opposite negative. And so let's talk about those levels. Copper is obviously the baseline. Then we ascend to silver and then we've got gold above it. But we understand that there are tiers, like there are within the Patricians, there are tiers within each of these individual levels. And you are able to level up before actually ascending to the next level. Copper, you can only interact with what you can touch. Silver, you can extend your animus. Animus is the right word, out to the world around you. And that golds can actually reshape the world around them. We don't get a lot of insight on gold. Why? Because our protagonist, our boy Castor, has not yet ascended to gold. He's right on the cusp of it, and you know that it's coming right at the start of the 3rd book for sure. Talking about those tiers, we get a couple of quotes from Castor as he's training in the Gogia. His ability that his copper veins are expanding. When he's doing his work with Pliny, when Pliny's got no idea about unrelenting fire, Castor talks about his heart forming another layer around it, a thicker shell around it, becoming more durable, essentially. The speed at which you can absorb and then imbue your essence changes. You can increase the speed of it. You can increase the efficiency of it. Pliny's constantly talking about the foundation level that Castor needs to be able to level up. It's like, dude, you went from copper to silver too quickly. We've got some foundational work that we can do here to increase the efficiency of what it is that you're able to do. The next topic, and one that I found probably the most confusing, or at least, let's go with confusing, is the idea of congruencies. And the reason why I think it's confusing is that I think we have an unreliable narrator. Castor is quite naive. We understand that well and truly. And Pliny is who we get a lot of information from, but I think he is unreliable as well. I don't think he fully appreciates what congruencies are truly capable of. So congruencies are all about thinking about the thing that one substance has in common with another, if not in common, like the opposite with another. If you can draw that link, then you are able to use that as well to your advantage. So like the obvious example, Castor is bound to ancient frost. All of the winter related things, anything that's flipping really cold and made of water and it's just crystallized, all that sort of stuff, there is a congruency there, and specificity comes into it as well. The closer that thing is to your actual true attunement, the thing that you have a true symbiotic relationship with. So fresh snow, for example, is not as specific as really old snow. That is closer to ancient frost, and therefore your ability to draw essence out of it, how efficient that process is, and the level of power that essence has changes the closer it is to it. So congruencies is the relationship to all of them. Specificity is how close it is to the thing that you're attuned to. Throughout Ironbound, I was like, oh, cool. So if iron is cold, right? Like this thing holds onto the cold really, really well, then is the snow not congruent with iron? Is Castor going to be able to manipulate the snow and draw essence and power from the snow as he's learning to really attune himself to the congruency that exists there. And Pliny says no. Pliny talks about congruencies using an analogy of houses, and he's just like, there is a winter house, there is a fire house, there is a wood house, for example. And he's like, no, congruencies exist within that house, and he uses that to draw the examples that he does in that sort of conversation. And I'm like, oh, that's not the relationship that I was getting when I read Ironbound. And I want to talk about the first time that Castor fought a Furia. He did so as an Ironbound. He had not yet formed a relationship with Ancient Frost. It came at the end of that fight, but at the first time that his blade drew contact with the Furia, he was only Ironbound. And he talks about he could hear this dull conversation. It wasn't this really clear-cut shatter, resist like he does when he fights other Ironbound. And he's just kind of like, oh, I can hear this murmur. I can hear this voice, but I can't quite make it out. And as he gets to know it more and more, he's able to hear more and more of it. And I'm like, is that the congruency? Is that the relationship that Castor's like, oh, I know there's a congruency there. I just can't quite draw the relation to it just yet. And I think that's because that's what congruencies allow them to do. If you can draw that connection, it doesn't matter about the houses that Pliny talks about. I think you can draw a connection across houses, basically. The other example I want to draw upon is the Ferrum Domini, the gold electors, those that were bound to iron, the iron lords that managed to ascend all the way to gold. They seem to be able to draw connections beyond iron. The examples we want to talk about here, and it's hard because, well, Delilah, for example, Senator Delilah, she explicitly says that Frigidus, which is one of the Iron Lords who was ironbound, a gold ironbound electus, that she says that he was bound to a winter symbol. No, he wasn't. He was bound to iron. Does that... And so this is where I get a little bit confused when it comes to congruencies. She says that he was bound to a winter symbol, whereas we know that he was an ironbound at Electus that specialized in the congruency of it being cold. And I think that's where Pliny gets it wrong. I think Frigidus, for example, he was like, oh, I have formed a relationship through iron to winter. Why? Because I have a real strong connection with the congruency of it being cold, and I am now able to manipulate all things cold and draw essence out of the snow and all that sort of good stuff. The other real clear example we get is, and unfortunately it's through a painting, and I appreciate that paintings don't necessarily have to make it mean that it's real, but hold out here, is the painting of Peleus, and how Peleus is one of the other Iron Lords, which means they're a gold-bound electus and bound to iron, and they are like legit floating on water hunting Neptune, is the story that we're told there. Last time I checked, there is not a lot of iron in water. So how is it that Peleus is able to basically float on water and fly across water hunting the god Neptune? I think that's because Peleus was able to figure out a congruency between iron and water of some description. Don't ask me what that congruency is, 'cause I don't know. I'm not a Magister, right? But I think that's another example that we have here where these gold-bound electors that were attuned to iron were able to draw comparisons or similarities or maybe differences with other symbols and other elements, and they were able to form a relationship with them. So I think Pliny is wrong. I think Pliny is an unreliable narrator, and I think we are able to discover through Castor, as he kind of does in that final fight scene where he's like, what I have learnt with one core, I can actually make the other core do that as well. If I'm able to push Ancient Frost out and create a Glacialis Falx, then I am able to do the exact same thing and create a Pierce Brown Razor, essentially, with my iron. That's my understanding of congruencies, of specificity, and where I think Pliny was perhaps wrong when he talks about his houses analogy. The last thing to comment on here when it comes to core and the magic system is the idea of authority. This is where Castor gets his like super advantage here, is that he is bound to two different ancient, or rather elder symbols in Ancient Frost and Unrelenting Fire. That is the peak of those two houses. This is where I'll use Pliny's analogy to illustrate my point here, is within those houses, there is a pecking order. And where I think this is going to come home to roost is that we learnt right at the end of Cold Wind that Xania, however you say her name, the matriarch of House Valeris. There we go. The matriarch of House Valeris, that she is bound to a fire symbol. However, she is not bound to the fire symbol, which is unrelenting fire. So I think at some point in time, hear me now, quote me later, Castor is going to end up fighting the matriarch of House Valeris. She's going to die. Why? Because she can't handle the heat that Castor is going to bring to that fight. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's the last thing that we want to talk about. We've talked about the different levels. We talked about specificity, congruency, and authority. Authority is going to come home to roost for fire. So one of the last topics I want to talk about is the gods, because something really stuck out to me really early on. And I was like, and Castor brought it up as well at one point in time. And in the end, it came to be untrue, and that's fine, but I want to talk about it nonetheless. It's just like, how do you kill a god? Like, I'm cool with the idea that these 6 Iron Lords are like super powerful, like superhumans, and they were able to storm Mons Olympus. But what do you do when you get there and you're face to face with an immortal god? Does a god not have to be immortal? I don't know. Like, in my mind, a god has to be immortal, or otherwise they're just like a super powerful person with powers greater than you and I. But is that nah? So you storm Mons Olympus, you come face to face with a god, and then you somehow kill them? I don't quite understand that. And Castor talks about it as well, where he's like, I don't quite understand why we still give so much respect and honor to the gods, not because the gods are dead, but because we killed the gods. Why is it not that we're praying to Julia or Peleus or Frigidus or one of these types as well, one of the 6 Iron Lords? So that was a thought that I had right from early on. I was like, how do you kill these people? Or gods, rather. You don't. That's the actual answer, is that the gods are not dead. The gods seemingly have... It's interesting. They appear to be prisoners. So they are undoubtedly, okay, they're prisoners, but there seems to be an agreement there. And that agreement seems to have been violated when Castor set Nemesis free. We learn from the Golden Wolf Praeco that Mars is pissed that we have violated our agreement that we had with the gods. So it's really interesting. We don't yet know the answer to that one. However, there were some gods that seemed to be more in cahoots with this agreement. Mars is obviously one. Nemesis was not in cahoots, and therefore she was bound by more rings of iron than what the others were. I wonder how it is that a god, like the gods that I read about in the Iliad and the Odyssey, how is it that they came to terms with the idea of being a prisoner? Because that is not part of their nature, right? So I'm really curious to figure out how powerful these Iron Lords were, the Ferrum Domini, how powerful they were to be able to get these gods to agree to something. Could they, in fact, kill the gods? I don't think so. They're immortal. Gods are immortal. You're not allowed to kill gods. I don't feel like that's how it works. Anyway, on the topic of gods, we're basically in the position that we are throughout these books because Castor keeps flipping, swearing votems to these dead gods. Like, this is not a thing that you should keep doing. He's done multiple deals with the devil, essentially. I think the first votum that he swore along with, with Valentina, what are their names? Marcus, and then eventually Felix. I couldn't remember Marcus's name. I think it was Mars. I think that's basically confirmed when Praeco comes and he is a herald of the god Mars, essentially. I think it was Mars that picked up that and accepted that votum that he gave. We learned through Nemesis that the votum, you can swear on the gods as much as you like, and you can slice your hand open and bleed on rocks as much as you like. The god, however, has to be a willing participant, and they have to accept your offering. And so I think it was Mars that eventually accepted the very first offering. The one that I find interesting, however, is Castor also swore another oath. So he swore the one to Mars, I think the original one. He swore an oath to Aquila. He swore an oath to Nemesis. He swore an oath on the votum rod to truth itself. There is another one here, and he swore this. This one was the Iron Oath. If you can remember back in Ironbound, where he first comes out of the iron pit, like bound to iron. He was already bound to iron, didn't fix his things, but he almost ascended to silver in that very moment, where he then swears the Iron Oath. There was no bleeding, however, in that moment. You could argue that by being branded with the XII, that was the blood, but you need Mars to accept the oath as well, and I'm not sure if it did. The only reason I bring this up is at some point in time, two of these votems are going to come home to roost at the exact same time, where Varus Peleus, House Peleus, is going to go, hey, you know how you're bound to me and all of my wishes? I need you to kill Empress Diana, please. However, the Iron Oath will then prevent him because he swore that oath to serve the people, the Senate, and the Empress. And he's going to be like, oh, I can't quite do these two things at the exact same time. I just don't think the Iron Oath was binding, or at least it won't make sense if it was binding because he won't be able to do both. Or maybe it will, and he'll just be crippled and lying there and won't be able to achieve either of those things. I think Mars collected on the first one, and I think that's where Praeco comes into it, but he didn't then subsequently collect on the Iron Oath. I've been talking for a long time, and they're the main things that I want to explore. They're the things that are hardest to visualize, essentially. So looking ahead to the third book in this trilogy, which comes out, I'm hoping, later this year, later in 2026. We'll see how quick of a writer Andrew Givler is. But no, we're about to go into full throttle rebellion. We obviously still have to finish what's going on in the gladiatorial battle. For whatever reason, that needs to come to a conclusion of some sort. That'll be fun. I liked where that story, that what Brianus was putting forward to all of the senators, I liked where he was going with that. But no, in terms of the rebellion, you've got two sides of this rebellion. On one side, you've got House Peleus and House Censors, so that's Delilah and co. And I think you're also going to have House Marius. I think Gaius and Percy are absolutely not dead. Didn't happen on this page, therefore it hasn't happened. Pierce Brown, we've learnt that from you. I'm hoping that Consul Maximus Marius is going to be fighting along on their side as well. And so then on the other side of this rebellion, you're going to be having Diana Agrippa, the Empress. You'll have her censors, and then you will also have House Valerius and Brianus, the other consuls. So I think you're going to have consuls on either side of this conflict going at it. I'm really hoping that the Lion of the North, Imperator Brodigan, is going to be coming along as well. And he's absolutely going to be on House Peleus' side. Surely, I know that he loved Diana at one point in time, but he is done with her. He is not going to be fighting on that side. We liked him, right? He was honourable. That's certainly the way that he came across in our brief interactions with him. So I really love a rebellion story. Red Rising's like my favourite book and favourite series of all time. So I love a rebellion story. I love overthrowing the established rust that exists in this Iron Empire. So I'm really keen on that. There were huge amounts of notes that I took that I haven't talked to. I really wanted to get the conversation about congruencies and authority and specificity and the hierarchy out there. But these 8,300 words that are in my notes, a lot of them have gone to waste. So this is going to take a huge amount of editing. Like, that's okay. You don't actually have to see that. I'm just going to scroll through my notes. And whenever something that really jumps out at me, I'm just going to stop and talk. And we'll see how we go with that. Immediately, first quote that I had about Percy and Gaius, I absolutely love this quote. An aura of solemn competency that exudes from them both. What an awesome way to describe someone. I wish someone described me as having an aura of solemn competency exuding from my personality. There is absolutely no love lost between the matriarch and patriarch of the Marius family, Plautia and Maximus. He is sleeping on the couch for sure at this point in time. We got a tiny little tidbit from Percy at one point in time where Marius was obviously on the outer with the Empress, and it was because we got the feeling that it had something to do with the Furia. Perhaps he was trying to warn the senators and the Empress about something, and that was not received well. Perhaps it's because the Empress already knows, or because she's an ostrich shoving her head in the sand. I'm not sure. There are questions to be answered there, but that is interesting. That will come to a head as well. I'm absolutely sure of it in book 3. Malus Mors. I like this gold. This is the gold-bound Electus that was in the prison with Castor when he was purchased by Pliny and Varus. Now, I'm just picturing this dude having not Popeye forearms, but Popeye biceps, like biceps on biceps. I like this guy. I hope he features prominently in the next book. Okay, let's talk about Castor for a second, because this dude is an absolute enigma. So often he just hits the I believe button when it comes to Empress Diana. For so long, he had so much evidence being presented to him. And he's like, oh my goodness, how could our dear Empress ever know? People are taking advantage of her. And it's just like, dude, you have drunk the Kool-Aid for far too long. You have so much evidence right now to realize that she is the stain. She is the cause of rust. She is the problem here. And yet he just willfully was ignorant when it came to her. Yet on the other end of the spectrum, he's the first person to question things and come and seek abstract answers to problems. When Felix, who is wicked smart, Marcus, who is no dummy, and Castor are running along in their full Eureka, their full iron outfits, and they're struggling. And he's like, oh, guys, just make the armor weigh less. He comes up with abstract solutions. He's always the one saying there's always an answer to these relics and to these problems. Yet when it comes to Diana, no, she could do no wrong. What is it with this chick? She got beer-flavored nipples or something?
What is it with this chick? She have beer-flavored nipples?
I don't quite understand it. Castor is an enigma. He's really dumb when it comes to some things and then wicked intelligent in other spaces. Castor definitely trusts too many people. He's quite similar to Darrow Alikos in this regard. He ends up trusting Anas, which made sense. Anas absolutely understood it. Alessandra, she caught him in the lie as well, but Laertes did. But man, he could have found a better way to get around the problem with Laertes. And then Pliny and Varus and the Lannister as well. He trusts a lot of people with his secret. Oh, and Marius as well, the Patriarch. A lot of people. He's trusting a lot of people. Too many people, you would think. Oh, I love the idea around the stalagmites that he learnt from the necromantia Vixa, where she was earthbound, able to throw up massive spears of earth, stalagmites. I have to thank Tenacious D for understanding the difference here. Stalagmite might poke you in the bum from below. Stalactite, hold on tight because they're coming down from the ceiling. You can use that one. Thank you. I learnt that when I was like 13 and can remember it still. Castor. Castor learnt the Willow Way. Like, that was the most obvious comparison that anyone could make here, this ultimate fighting style. The one thing I will say is I was disappointed that he never really had a win from that moment onwards using the Willow Way. I'm just going to call it the Willow Way, right? We know what we're talking about here. So obviously he's at a disadvantage when fighting those with a Tellus blade. Perhaps what Andrew Givler is doing here is using the Willow Way to merely allow Castor to neutralize the Tellus blade. Without knowing it, he has to be an awesome fighter, and he was not. So perhaps that's exactly what it is. I was looking for him to just outright win battles, irrespective of what they were using, just because of the Willow Way and the advantages that he was able to make in his just foundational fighting skills. And that hasn't really come to fruition yet. Perhaps it will for Illy. I think Illy is going to be a lethal fighter because of the benefit of the Willow Way. But it was more Castor's, again, his abstract thinking and his use of the magic system, realizing that what he could do to Ancient Frost, he could also do to Iron, and then create another Pierce Brown weapon, create a razor. But it wasn't necessarily the Willow Way that got him the win. I guess the Willow Way got him back to a level playing field. And then from there, it was his understanding and extrapolation of the magic system that got him the win. I'm okay with that. Andrew, made no changes. I'm happy with that. That gets a pass from me. Oh, we also got like really strong comparisons between Castor and Rin. We'll go to Rin, the granddaughter, and Darrow and Cassius. Cassius was this graceful, elegant fighter who barely came away with a scratch on him, and Darrow was just this brute force ramming himself against immovable objects all the time. That's exactly what Castor has been, just with his Iron Legion mindset, just ramming himself against his opponent. And then Rin comes along and gracefully dances around him and makes him look an absolute fool. So a real heavy Darrow v Cassius vibes in those scenes as well. Felix isn't dead. Felix is coming back. I just really hope that we don't have to fight Felix. I don't want to fight Felix. I liked Felix. I would like to see him survive and succeed and go and be a baker. I like nice things. Please let us have a couple of nice things. Yeah, Valentina's not dead as well. One thing, the way in which she mentioned that she wanted to be bound to music, I got real strong vibes in that moment that is exactly what's going to happen. For whatever reason, the Empress is going to use her to her advantage, and that's not going to be fun. Castor's going to have to either try and win her over. She's going to be a siren, right, calling him to his death with their beautiful music. I think that's what's going to happen. Hear me now, quote me later. Valentina will be bound to music when we're going to find that out in the third book. Oh, Anas. I like Anas. We all need an Anas. Geez, that's a dangerous word to say fast. We need an Anas in our lives. Someone who's loyal and he's going to stand by us and not judge us for what society says that we should be judged for. Yeah, we need an Anas in our lives. Senator Varus Pellias, he undoubtedly reminds me of what Nero, our Augustus, could have been in Red Rising. He gave such similar vibes on page, except one of them was an absolute douchebag and the other was not. I feel like Varus is what Nero could have been, but absolutely did not end up becoming that. Alessandra, what a babe. She is, okay, they have to end up together, don't they? They absolutely have to end up together. I don't think Castor is going to be dying in the third book. I don't think that's what's in his future. And surely Alessandra doesn't as well. They're going to get together. They're coming together. I hope. I think that's what I want. Yeah, they're both going to survive and they're going to end up being together at the end of the third book. We get our romance. Illy, I like Illy. Illy's here to stay. Illy may die. Maybe that's the sacrificial lamb that we're going to have in the third book. Brogy, I'm curious to know more about the Norman who's bound to fire of some sort. I would like to see exactly how and why he is sort of accepted here as the outright enemy, like he is the danger from the north. I'm curious to know more about that situation and why that's accepted. Okay, I just found my massive section on the Iron Legions. I definitely got this wrong earlier on. The 7th, 8th, and 9th legions are the Northern legions. They wear white. I was completely wrong. I said like 4th, 5th, 6th or something crazy. 4th, 5th, 6th are the Naval legions. They wear blue. 2nd and 3rd wear black. I wonder if they are the same group of people that become the Sicarii, basically the spies, they come and hunt you down in the middle of the night. I wonder if that's the case. And obviously 1st Legion Praetorians exclusively wear purple. How brutal is that? The 10th and 11th and 12th wear red so that the blood doesn't offend anybody else because they're out there just to be the meat grinders in war and sent to die. Brutal. So I've lost count here. We had 6 Iron Legions: Titus, Frigidus, Lucretia, Peleus, and Julia. That's Julia Census. I'm missing one. Is it Perseus? Perseus was said to have found, I'm assuming it's Agrippa, Perseus Agrippa, I think, where he found the Iron Empire and was the first emperor, essentially, but he only ruled for 10 years before Diana killed him. Is he the 6th Iron Lord? I feel like I've lost count. Help me out in the comments. Who was the 6th? I'm really confident with the 5. Who was the 6th? Was it Perseus? I'm not quite sure. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We could go for absolute days. I've thoroughly enjoyed these books. Andrew Givler, I love what you're putting on paper right now, dude. Progression Fantasy, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to read more Progression Fantasy. It's been really enjoyable. Please, everyone, jump into the comments. As I said at the start, just because I am silly enough to put my thoughts on camera doesn't mean that I'm right. It's just what I have got out of these books, and I have been absolutely wrong. If anyone was keeping track of my theories throughout Strength of the Few by James Arlington, I was wrong more than I was right. And I do suspect that I'm wrong when it comes to this. But congruencies, that's the piece that I'm really keen to explore. Andrew, if you're watching, I know you're watching, dude. Jump into the comments. Let us know if that was correct. Do we have an unreliable narrator situation? If so, just give us a wink in the comments. Just give us a nod in the comments and we will just continue on knowing that we're in the dark. Otherwise, let's continue that conversation. Let me know in the comments what I got right, what everyone thinks I got wrong, and what your predictions are for book 3 as well. I'm super keen to see what we have in store in book 3. This has been a whole bunch of fun. Everyone should read these books. Let me know how much you're enjoying it. Until next time, ciao.